Thank you, Jackie, very much. And we are very happy to welcome you all to today's UC Retiree Learning Series hosted by Belmont Village Senior Living. This lecture series aims to expand opportunities to retirees while also providing an opportunity for them to learn about Bay Area retirement communities like Belmont Village. So again, please reach out to Jackie if you would like any more information about the Belmont Village communities. And I'm very happy to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Emiliana Simon-Thomas. Dr. Simon-Thomas is the science director of the Greater Good Science Center and co-instructor of its Science of Happiness and Science of Happiness at Work online courses, which you can read more about and sign up for on the Greater Good Science Center website. And Dr. Simon-Thomas is a leading expert on the neuroscience and psychology of compassion, kindness, gratitude, and other prosocial skills that bolster human happiness. Her work spotlights the science that connects health and happiness to social affiliation, caregiving, and collaborative relationships. And she continues to examine the potential for, as well as the benefits of, living a more meaningful life. So welcome, Dr. Simon-Thomas.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Jackie. And thank you to everyone who is out there listening and joining us for this experience together. I am Emiliana Simon-Thomas, and I'm here to talk with you about the science of gratitude today. I am going to share some slides with you while I'm talking, just to add a visual dimension to the ideas that I'll be discussing. And I will also be sharing a few interactive experiences with you during our time together. So I hope that that's more energizing, and let's go ahead and get started with the science of gratitude. It's always helpful to set out an expectation, or to find some consensus and agreement about what we're talking about to begin with. While a lot of people have a sense for what gratitude means, when scientists study it, they study it in a couple of ways that help us share findings and find synergy across different methodologies so that we can actually report on what's most useful for each person. So what is it? What do we mean when we use the word gratitude? One way that we talk about it is as a feeling. It's something that occurs. We actually have it. It's kind of warm. It feels good when it's happening. There's a sense of optimism and connection, and the anticipation of future trust and reciprocity. This is kind of how people describe what it feels like to actually express your gratitude, and also what it feels like to receive gratitude from another person. We think about gratitude in this way that I just described, as a feeling. It occurs when you notice that something good about your life has occurred, right? There's something good going on, and you didn't have to work for it or earn it. And it's attributable to the effort that another person put forth. So again, it's that feeling when you realize something good has happened. I didn't have to work hard to make it happen or come to me. It's just there, and somebody else, either like immediately present, or even when we're really exercising gratitude, and we'll have a couple of chances to try this, even something kind of existential can be something we feel grateful toward, or people in antiquity who may have generated ideas that shape the opportunities that we enjoy in life can be sources of gratitude for us. Another way that researchers think about gratitude is more of a habit, right? More of a dispositional quality or characteristic of who you are. These things are not completely independent, right? If you feel gratitude often, if you express gratitude often, you're likely to be the kind of person who would be considered grateful as a personality characteristic. Robert Emmons is one of the researchers who really pioneered the science of gratitude, and he defines that dispositional or characteristic gratitude as the feeling of reverence for things that are given. So when researchers try to understand, well, is gratitude something that you learn as a young child because your parents are very polite or morally aligned and want you to be a person who has the potential and the habit of expressing gratitude, or the luxury of experiencing gratitude frequently, or is it something we're born with? Is it innate? Is it an evolved property? Well, when primatologists look at behavior and study closely how their colonies interact, what they find is evidence that gratitude exists, that there is an expression of gratitude even in primates that isn't necessarily through language. It's through behaviors that actually keep track of when one member of the colony recognizes that another one has done something morally good, right? So there's this behavior, there's this specific and systematic response to, oh, there's a morally virtuous other member of my community, and my brain and nervous system is going to record that as pleasurable, as rewarding, as good. And that allows me to recognize moral virtue. And moral virtue allows us as a collective to function in a cooperative and collaborative way as a social species. So gratitude has been considered a moral barometer that humans have evolved with in order to guide our collective behaviors. When we experience gratitude around and about another person as a human, it's a way of recognizing who it is we may want to persist in a relationship with or pursue a deeper relationship with. We identify and remember those others who we encounter who we want to reconnect with. So on that note, we're going to get right into an experiential exercise, and I'm going to share with you a 5-minute reflective gratitude practice. And this is guided by Brother David Steindl-Rast, who runs an organization called gratefulness.org. So just settle in, get comfortable, and let's enjoy this moment together.
You think this is just another day in your life? It's not just another day. It's the one day that is given to you today. It's a gift. It's the only gift that you have right now. And the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you learn to respond as if it were the first day in your life and the very last day, then you will have spent this day very well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open. That incredible array of colors that is constantly offered to us for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from moment to moment with clouds coming and going. Open your eyes, look at that. Look at the faces of people whom you meet. Each one has an incredible story behind their face. Not only their own story, but the story of their ancestors. All that life from generations and from so many places all over the world flows together and meets you here like a life-giving water if you only open your heart and drink. Open your heart to the incredible gifts that civilization gives to us. You flip a switch and there is electric light. Turn a faucet and there is warm water and cold water and drinkable water. A gift that millions and millions in the world will never experience. And so I wish you that you will open your heart to all these blessings and let them flow through you. That everyone whom you will meet on this day will be blessed by you, just by your presence. Let the gratefulness overflow into blessing all around you. And then it will really be a good day.
Okay. So maybe shake your shoulders, roll your head. I hope that that experience for a moment reminded you of your innate capacity for that way of seeing the world and noticing how goodness comes to you, and often in the form of other people's contribution and effort. Why would we want to actually pursue or strengthen or exercise or introduce more gratitude into our daily life, aside from that it just might feel nice? Well, when researchers study the differences between people who score high on measures of gratitude and people who score lower, and look at how they relate to stressful experiences in their life, what this figure shows you is that more gratitude makes it more likely that people are going to relate to stress through a path of positive reinterpretation and growth. So how is this stress an opportunity for me to pursue a solution to a particular challenge and learn something new, as opposed to the alternative pathways, which is, I'm a bad person and that's why this stressful thing is happening to me, or I'm just going to totally avoid and pretend that this challenge or this threat is not apparent in my life at all. The lowest path, called behavioral disengagement. So there are these ways that being more grateful actually make you more resilient and less vulnerable to anxiety. That was an older study, and so I'm going to share a quote from a more recent study done by researchers at UCSF. And on this team, they actually they partnered with a mobile device company, and they prompted people throughout the day to share how they were feeling with little nudges. And then they also measured a variety of different physiological and psychological indices from each person. And from a sample of about 10,000 people, this is one of the summary findings. These analyses show that trait gratitude predicted lower heart rate and systolic and diastolic blood pressure, better sleep quality, more moderate and vigorous exercise, lower stress frequency, less stress intensity, greater expectations for the day, higher ratings of pleasantness of the best experience of the day, lower ratings of unpleasantness of the worst experience of the day, and greater feelings of appreciation toward a particularly close other. So I'm hoping that these benefits are good justification or inspiration or motivation for imagining how you might introduce more gratitude into your life. Sharing a couple of other studies about gratitude. The one on the left is a report that looked at how people behave after they have received some kind of favor. The people who have received a favor are called are in a group where they have a benefactor, and in the blue is people who didn't receive a favor, right? They went through some kind of hardship in the laboratory, and somebody helped them if they're in the green bar. If they went through that same hardship, but nobody helped them, they're the blue bar. And the question is, how do they act when they're asked or invited to be generous afterwards, right? Are they going to be more helpful and generous after they have felt gratitude because someone has helped them? And what the data show is that people who feel gratitude, this is the green bars, because they have been helped, they have received some kind of goodness at the effort of another person, they both volunteer to contribute more time to help the person who actually benefited them, the benefactor, but also they'll help a stranger, a person who they've never met, who they don't know, and they don't have any reason to potentially encounter or meet again. So when you feel grateful, you are more likely to behave in generous ways. On the right is a study that surveyed teenagers about their levels of gratitude and their sense of entitlement. And students or teenagers who report more gratitude are also going to report, are going to disagree with statements like, I would love to be able to buy things that cost a lot of money. And instead, they're more likely to agree with statements like, if I had to make a lot of things, or if I had to list a lot of things that I'm thankful for, it would be a long list. Okay, so when people experience more gratitude, they show less materialism and entitlement. Sarah Algo is a researcher at the University of North Carolina who studies close relationships, couples who share their lives, and has in particular focused on how important gratitude, shared gratitude between them is to their relationship satisfaction. And as the figure on the right suggests, when couples communicate and convey gratitude to one another, this leads to greater feelings of being seen, of being understood, and feeling that quintessential emotion of love, that sense of partnership and bonding. So Sarah has characterized gratitude as the find, remind, and bind emotion. So it has these three functionalities. One, it helps us identify who it is that we might want to have future social connections with. That's who we find. It reminds us, right, by biologically signaling reward in association with a virtuous behavior or a benevolent act that another person has done. We remember who that person is. And we have a sense of closeness and social bond with others when we have that experience of gratitude in the context of close relationships. When researchers try to study, like, okay, now we've got this idea that gratitude is innate, that it's essential, that it serves all of these different functions, and it feels good, and it leads to these psychological benefits. Well, what's it doing in the brain? Like, how could we understand which pathways and which structures are most instrumental to the experience of gratitude? This study put people into a brain scanner and then had them imagine very robustly situations that would make you feel grateful. So for example, you go into a parking lot, there's another car, there's not very many places to park, and a person in the other car waves you in. Go ahead, it's yours, you go first. Even though it's not clear who necessarily got there first. The other condition to which you would compare that is 2 cars come into the lot and there's 2 spots. Everybody goes in. That's a control condition. Or maybe an adversarial condition where you come in and the other person quickly gets into the spot and you feel maybe frustrated. It turns out that when people experience gratitude in a brain scanner, this activates pathways in the brain that are involved in generosity and pleasure and social understanding. And in the chart that I'm showing you here, what we found is when people practice gratitude by doing the kind of reflection that we did together moments ago, or writing down things that we feel grateful for, or expressing gratitude to other people in face-to-face interactions, this leads to stronger connections, stronger links between structures in the brain that signal pleasure and reward, those warm feelings, and structures in the brain that help us understand other people. So essentially, gratitude is linking, or it's strengthening the paths between our pleasure circuits and our interpersonal and social circuits. We find other people more pleasing when we exercise and practice gratitude. And we experience more pleasure when we behave in generous and supportive ways. That pleasure response is called the warm glow response. We feel good when we give to others. We feel good when we know that our efforts or our actions relieve other people's suffering. That warm glow feeling gets stronger when people practice gratitude. So just to summarize, gratitude, being a more grateful person, you're more likely to notice the goodness, right? And that's otherwise defined as optimism, noticing the glass half full, seeing the world through goodness that is in your life. When we reflect on gratitude or experience gratitude, again, remember that it's not about what you've earned. It's not about your own effort or your own worth, right? It's about how the universe or other people or external forces are providing goodness in your life. And that way of thinking kind of outside of yourself, being less self-focused or vigilant to what could be going wrong, is associated with well-being, right? When we ruminate about all the difficulties that we might have experienced earlier or things we're worried about occurring in the future, we're losing those moments to actually notice the goodness that is right here, right now. And then thirdly, gratitude makes generosity and social and interpersonal experiences more rewarding. So I want to offer us or invite us to do a quick little interactive element now. Hopefully some of you have a mobile device or some kind of way to access the internet. If you do, and you can take a picture with your phone of this QR code, you'll find a survey. Alternatively, you can go to this link, menti.com, and type in this number. And please respond to the questions there. This is an example of how researchers might measure gratitude. And I thought it just might be helpful to get a sense or a feel for that. I'll leave this slide up for another minute, and then I will shift over to a different page that actually shows us what the responses look like amongst the group of people who are joining us on this webinar today. I think that the information is also posted in chat. All right, I'm going to shift out of this and go to our results page. Oops. Which is here. Oh, good. It looks like people are responding. That means they were able to successfully find the survey. Okay, I can see on the bottom right, as you can also, how many people have submitted responses. And as people are submitting, the graphic in front of us is updating in real time. So it looks like on a scale of 1 to 7, we have a pretty high sensibility for gratitude amongst the group. People are saying, I have so much to be thankful for. And the reverse scored items, like long amounts of time can go by before I feel grateful for something or someone, are pretty low. So again, this is called the GQ6, or the 6-item gratitude questionnaire. And it's a way that researchers measure dispositional gratitude. Some of the other findings that I didn't share, but I'll just talk through while we're waiting for people to still have enough time to fill out the survey. When people score higher on this particular measurement instrument, they are more resilient to stress, and they suffer less from post-traumatic stress. So in studies that looked at, for example, young people who went into military service and experienced traumatic experience in conflict, those who scored higher on this kind of measure of gratitude before they were deployed and returned from a traumatic experience suffered less PTSD than those who scored lower on gratitude. So there's something about gratitude at that dispositional level that equips people to handle and cope with adversity and stress in life. People who score higher in gratitude cope with difficulty in more resilient ways. Okay, so I'm keeping an eye. It looks like we're probably slowing down on the number of responses to the gratitude questionnaire. But again, I hope this is just a felt experience for how we might meaningfully assess gratitude in a research context. I'm going to switch back now to my slides. And I'll share this deck as well as the results for that survey. I'll add them to the deck with anybody who's interested. So I want to switch now because there's always some skepticism about gratitude out in the room. Some of it is like, why is it necessary? You know, who cares? And then some of it is, it's really hard and I can't figure out how to bring it into my life. And so I'd like to name those challenges and those barriers. One of them is, it can feel like you just don't have a minute. You don't have a minute to spare. I hope that 5-minute video was an example of how brief an investment it actually is, right? We don't have to spend 3 hours sitting down and thinking carefully about gratitude in order to introduce it more richly into our lives. There is time. And we'll talk a little bit more about the next way that I like to recommend practicing gratitude that increases something that most of us do regularly from being about 1.5 seconds to being about 9 seconds. And so again, yeah, it might feel like you don't have time, but the return on the small investment of time that you might make to experience and strengthen that gratitude in your life is huge. One of the other barriers is that humans are built to be vigilant to potential threats. And this works really well for us in situations and environments where there actually are threats, right? Where historically in evolutionary timeframes, we might have been trying to escape from a predator, and it was really important to very quickly notice the things that might be threats. And we had to have a little bit more safety and open-heartedness to be able to recognize the goodness that's occurring in our lives. I'd like to argue, and I hope that most of you will agree, that there aren't that many situations in our modern civilized daily lives where we are confronting those kinds of daily threats. And so that negativity bias, as it's called, is something we have to kind of muscle against, right? It's not helping us to spend so much of our cognitive energy, again, ruminating on things that aren't going well, when in fact, many things, arguably even more things, actually really are going well. And so we kind of have to counteract that negativity bias. In our highly comfortable lives, and our kind of massive influx of popular media advertising and information, it's really easy to indulge in something called social comparison. And so this cartoon on the left, money can't buy happiness, but if I had a big house, fancy car, and giant plasma TV, I wouldn't mind being unhappy, right? That's absurd, right? Nobody would choose all of those material possessions and choose them for the sake or for the trade of unhappiness in life, right? What's the point of having them? But in fact, oftentimes that materialistic outlook and that manner of, well, I'm not happy with what I have because somebody else next door has something nicer, or somebody on social media has more privilege or more luxury than I do, so I'm going to always feel a little bit inadequate or frustrated about my own potential failure. This can really get in the way of that opportunity to dwell in and benefit from exercising gratitude. On the right, I have a couple of cartoons that are about the perils of an overly transactional mindset. So in workplaces, I have to talk about this quite often because I'll explain to leaders how important it is for them to recognize and appreciate their employees by telling them, I'm grateful for the effort that you put forth, for the fact that you've dedicated your life and your day-to-day energy to helping with this enterprise. Because the leaders think, I don't have to say that, I pay you, and that's enough. It turns out it's just not, right? Humans didn't evolve with the expectation of paper money or digital money or whatever it is. The expectation is for friendship, for coordinating effort to pursue common goals. So this overly transactional mindset that like, hey, it's not worth it if any life pursuit is not worth it unless I'm earning money for it, is a problem when it comes to gratitude. It really undermines people's efforts for to express and experience and also benefit from gratitude. We also have habits over the course of our lives that can get in the way of experiencing and expressing gratitude. For example, just adapting to the goodness that we might already have. So this is one of the challenges of the human nervous system. If we have, and this is a cartoon about the ice cream, right? By the 5th year, Jim really regretted following his childhood passion for ice cream. And if you have ice cream on a hot day and you're a little bit hungry, it's like the best thing you've ever tasted. If you are given the 8th ice cream cone and you're really full and you have ice cream maybe every single day because you're working in an ice cream shop, it just becomes less rewarding, right? We adapt to it, we habituate to it. And we often have that tendency to habituate to other goodnesses in our life. And so like the negativity bias, we have to kind of step back from that adaptation and that habit of kind of continually pursuing the next fancier, better, sweeter thing, and really dwell in the goodness that is in front of us. And on the right, there's this challenge that people bring up quite often about gratitude that has to do with fear of expressing it because people won't appreciate it, right? Or that if I say thank you to another person, then that means I'm obligated to them, right? I'm actually making them. I will leave that dynamic feeling guilty because I now owe them something. And again, that's one of the facets of thinking in an overly transactional way, right? Gratitude is not about exchanging tit for tat in a reciprocal way, but it's about acknowledging the importance and the meaningfulness of an interpersonal bond. It's about appreciation and recognition not about obligation and admission of vulnerability. So when researchers, having amassed all of this data about the benefits of gratitude, researchers then try to figure out, well, how can we teach skills or activities or exercises or practices that people can use to experience more gratitude in their daily lives. One of them is to just keep a journal, right? There's a lot of evidence that through repetition and practice, your awareness and attention will begin to more readily notice goodness, will be more equipped to arrive at gratitude without necessarily having to try, right? It's just repetition. If you write down what you're grateful for in a little journal, or maybe you like to type or use some kind of digital platform regularly, you'll just start to have an easier time experiencing gratitude. It works best if you sort of free write and use a little bit more detail about the things that you have in your life that are good. And some people are like, oh, this is really hard because there's nothing good. But I would argue that we can start from even the most basic kinds of things that Brother David Steindl-Rast mentioned in his gratitude reflection, right? Just warm air, or the colors of leaves changing over the seasons, or the ability to sit in a comfortable chair. Like, just the basic things can be a place to start. And as you start to feel grounded in those basic goodnesses, you can orient your attention towards people who you encounter, maybe the person who checks out your groceries when you do some shopping, or let's go back to the ice cream, scoops your ice cream in the way that just is so exciting and delicious. So we can have that dynamic and that sentiment of gratitude more readily in our daily lives if we go through an exercise and a practice of writing. Researchers who study gratitude journaling show that after 2 weeks of keeping a gratitude journal, people feel more positive emotions, people feel less disturbed by ordinary sort of physical complaints like stomach aches or skin rashes. People feel more content and satisfied in their relationships. So this is a validated method. We tried a reflection together, right? A guided one in a video form. But there's no reason that if you already feel like this makes sense and it's something you can relate to, that you couldn't take 30 seconds in any given day to dwell reflectively on something good and where it comes from and how other people have played a hand in making that available to you in your life. Just a personal reflection. There are also lots of other guided reflections and sort of gratitude meditation type practices that you could find on the internet. One of the other ways, which is sort of like a backwards way of studying gratitude, if you're finding that it's difficult to come up with goodness, if you're feeling a little bit more ornery or just hopeless in a given moment, is to think about a goodness that you might not have actually gotten to have. You know, what's something that you do have, but maybe it didn't happen. What would your life have been like if that didn't come to you, right? What if you hadn't had the opportunity to pursue your career or your education in the way that you did? How different would your life have been, and how fortunate are you that opportunity or that privilege came to you? What if you had never met your best friend? Everybody has a story about someone who they met through some kind of roundabout coincidental situation, introduced by another person, or stuck in the elevator. What if that had never come to pass and you didn't have that deep and meaningful friendship? That is a way to kind of really reignite feelings of gratitude for some of the goodness that we have in our lives. The obvious exercise is to actually just express your gratitude, to say thank you to other people. And by and large, people are pretty good at saying thank you in their personal lives with their families and friends, and maybe even out in the world with people they don't know well. But when we survey gratitude expressing behavior, it doesn't happen very often in workplaces. That's somewhere, and it's very rare for employees to thank their bosses and managers, even though we know that those kinds of expressions would be quite beneficial. That said, most of us take a shortcut that just dilutes the power or the impact or magnitude of that exchange or expression of gratitude. And that is, we just do something like this. Thanks. Thank you. Right? We just say those minor words. And that's better than nothing. I will say that. But if you really want to leverage that moment for the biggest benefit, here's what we know. People feel the most gratitude when they perceive, or at least gratitude towards another person, when they perceive that a goodness has come to them, that another person has played a hand in, which they've done intentionally, and that they've put effort towards, and that has made a difference in your life. So that's making me feel more special and more kind of uplifted with that sense of gratitude when those factors are present. And so when I want to express gratitude for a goodness, re-invoking those factors is a way to supersize the impact, right? So I can say thank you and then describe what it is that the person did. I can acknowledge the effort that that person put forth, and I can explain how it helped me. So, for example, I'm going to try to spontaneously come up with an expression of gratitude. I've got it. I'm going to say thank you to Jackie for inviting me to share this science with the UC retirement and Belmont communities. It means a lot. I know that there are a lot of different speakers that she could have chosen, and a lot of topics she could have focused on, but she chose gratitude, and that meant it was possible. It was an opportunity for me, and I really get a lot out of being able to share this expertise with people, and it's fulfilling to me to know that my work is making an impact. So thank you, Jackie, for that. For
Our
inviting me.
pleasure. Thank you, Doctor.
There's another little arena of gratitude practice, which is more creative. And you might have come across it. Perhaps somebody set aside a big wall and put some colorful pens and Post-it notes out and said, hey, for the next week, let's all just put up a little note that expresses our gratitude for someone or something in our lives that is good. And then others will walk by and they'll see this and they'll feel inspired. Gratitude is beneficial to the individual who's experiencing it, the person who is actually receiving or being recognized for their action that led to the gratitude, and also third-party witnesses. It's uplifting and heartwarming to see a gratitude exchange between two other people. So those kinds of creative artistic initiatives can be really powerful ways to exercise gratitude. So this is our third interactive moment. And what I want you to do is actually try it. Try this way of expressing gratitude that is specific and comprehensive. And again, it doesn't mean you take an hour, right? It means you go from just that quick little thanks to something that is just more fulfilling and enriching and emotionally evocative for yourself and the other person who you're talking with. So the next 5 minutes, bring to mind some kind of goodness in your life that you haven't had to work for or earn, and write a message of gratitude to a person who made this possible, a person who made this possible. And the method, I like to call it gratitude 1, 2, 3. Just, free write, no pressure. This is not an exam. The point here is just to try it once, so that maybe next time you find yourself in a position to say thank you to someone, you'll actually remember, oh yeah, I'm going to do gratitude 1, 2, 3. I'm going to try to go through the 3 things. What did they do? What effort did they put forth? And how did it benefit me? So I'll stop talking for now 3 minutes, give you a chance to try this. All right. Maybe that wasn't really all the way 3 minutes, but I also started to look at the posts that people have made in the Q&A, and I want to make sure we have some time for that. So please do feel free to keep working on your gratitude note. And when researchers study a gratitude note or gratitude letter, there are the same kinds of positive benefits to the writers. And then if they follow those writers of the notes and the letters and measure what happens in those who actually give them or deliver them or read them to the person to whom they wrote them about, the benefits are even greater. And of course, they're shared with the recipient of that note or letter. So I encourage you to share it. Share this note that you've written for another person. So to summarize, when scientists evaluate gratitude, both as an emotional experience and as a sort of habitual way of walking the world, there are a number of things that change. People feel more positive emotion. They tend to engage in health behaviors. So in people who, there's a specific study of people who have experienced cardiovascular disease, and the prognosis for those who score higher on and or practice gratitude is improved compared to those who don't. People exercise more when they're more grateful. They score higher on happiness. They're more motivated. They tend to persevere towards their goals. Gratitude is associated with like spiritual thinking and knowing that, again, it's not all about you all the time, right? That there's lots of benefit in the world and goodness that is coming from something that transcends our own effort and impact in the world. People who experience more gratitude tend to be more prosocial. They tend to see others as more trustworthy. They're better at growing from adversity. They show more post-traumatic growth. They're more willing to seek support, right? So they're more willing to ask for help. When researchers ask participants to come in the lab and look at other participants who are speaking into a video camera, just about incidental and uneventful things, but we've also measured how grateful they are. The ones who've been brought in have been asked to say, well, how much do you want to like meet that person for coffee? I mean, how much do you think you would probably be able to strike up a good friendship with that person? Turns out that we detect that gratitude, and we're more interested in other people who score higher on measures of gratitude. Of course, in workplace contexts, when leaders express gratitude more often and more readily, people in that organization find those leaders more appealing and endorse them for further advancement. As I said earlier, relationship quality goes up with more gratitude. Relationships last longer when couples have a habit or a practice of exchanging and communicating gratitude to one another. On the other side of the grid here, people who practice gratitude or score higher on gratitude experience less physical discomfort and disease. Their gratitude is associated with lower heart rate and lower blood pressure, lower chronic and post-traumatic stress, stress and anxiety, depression, envy and callousness. These kinds of interpersonally conflictual emotional states or attitudes are lower in people who either are more grateful or who practice gratitude. Entitlement and possessiveness, and then finally incivility and aggression are lower in people who practice gratitude. Oops, I skipped a slide. That was a summary of the findings, and the summary of the insights here is that we as a species, an ultra-social species, whose success hinges on our ability to come together in community and coordinate effort and collectively pursue and achieve goals. Gratitude is part of what's helped us function in groups. But like any other skill or habit, we need to actually exercise and practice it to stay in shape. Like, it doesn't just come naturally. It's there when we're born, but we do have to kind of keep engaging with it in order for it to be prominent in our mental and social lives. Though most people do say, oh, gratitude is something that I would like to have more of. I would like to say that I'm a grateful person. It's also really easy to adapt to the goodness and take what is given for granted and to fail to notice what that goodness and then to actually express gratitude in the rich and specific way that leads to these beneficial outcomes. But if we do it on purpose, we practice gratitude, we very reliably see benefits to health, well-being, relationships, and in the context of workplaces or organizations or communities, more success. Expressing gratitude interpersonally, as well as through systems and initiatives, is a great place to start. So I'll leave you with this final slide, which is a number of different resources that you can avail yourself of from the Greater Good Science Center. And this quote from the 2023 Office of the Surgeon General's report on the epidemic of loneliness and healing effects of social connection and community. I pulled this out because this is one of the things Surgeon General of the United States says you can do to combat loneliness and experience greater well-being. Be responsive, supportive, and practice gratitude. It is not something foo-foo. This is a phenomenon and a construct that we can all benefit from. So I'll stop there and open it up for questions. And Camille, I think you're going to help with that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's get into the questions. We have some great ones. So let's start. Our first question is another person always needed to feel gratitude? I feel grateful for my health, for my feet that can carry me places, my arms that can lift things, etc.
Yeah, absolutely not. Gratitude is about attuning. Remember, reverence for goodness. So there are kind of different versions of gratitude. That version of acknowledging and honoring goodness that isn't about necessarily another person is a start. But I would challenge you, and I'm looking, I think the name, oh, okay, anonymous attendee. Oh, wait, is it an anonymous? Yeah, anonymous attendee. Yep. I would challenge you to try to imagine, like, who has made it possible for you to have this good health, right? Are there care providers who have looked after you? Were your parents invested in supporting your health as a child and in your early adulthood? Like, what are the ways that you have been privileged with ways of living and resources and opportunities that have contributed to that good health? So try go a little bit deeper and connect these benefits that you think aren't about another person to another person, even if that person is Aristotle, right, for democracy, because you as a woman have had the right to vote, right? There are these things that we take for granted on a daily basis that ultimately can get linked back through the generations to human effort.
And then Joan makes a comment that it seems our whole culture is anti-gratitude. And to turn this into a question, I'm curious your thoughts on how our political, academic, cultural leaders can do a better job of promoting gratitude. And if you think there are any current leaders that actually do this well.
Yeah, I mean, I would start with the Surgeon General of the United States, who included it in his recent advisory report. No other leader comes to mind immediately. And you're right. We are in a time period of unprecedented ideological polarization. Gratitude is not something you hear that often in the halls of politics. How can a leader try to normalize or promote gratitude? I answer this question the same way that I answer a similar question about how can parents infuse or cultivate gratitude in their children? And the answer is demonstrate it, model it, right? I think if a leader expresses gratitude in an open and public way with the specificity that we practice today, and if parents express gratitude both to their children and also in front of their children in that specific and more rich way, that becomes normative, right? It becomes something that is a go-to response rather than something you have to think about and kind of push away these other forces. I agree. Our contemporary modern culture is very consumerist and materialistic. I think the science of happiness writ large is reporting over and over again that pursuing a life of pleasure and power and status doesn't actually land you high on the scale from very low to very high happiness. It's things like gratitude and social relationships and feeling like what you do matters and who you are matters. And again, having those moments of positive emotion, but they don't have to be like hedonic pleasure. It can be awe. I saw that somebody wrote about going for a walk in nature, right? Having those moments, watching magnificent singing performances or whatever art is most appealing to you, those awe-inspiring positive emotions, gratitude as a positive emotion. These are more relevant to your happiness than sheer pleasure and what we typically think of, because that's what all the advertisers use to tell us what's going to make us happy.
And this is an interesting question. Does the fake it till you make it trope apply to gratitude? Maybe you don't feel much gratitude now, but if you force yourself to say thank you more often, for example, can you start to feel more gratitude in the future?
Yeah, so this is kind of a complicated question. And it's because I don't really like the fake it part of fake it till you make it. We're really good at detecting insincere gratitude. Like we have, sometimes it happens. For example, I might say to my colleague, hey, thank you so much for staying really late tonight to help me, right? Like that's not actually productive, and it's not gratitude, because I'm not actually dwelling on a goodness, right? I'm sarcastically and being critical and perhaps manipulative, right? It's not actually gratitude. So I don't really like the fake it part. What I do like is the challenge of doing something that might stretch your comfort zone. So if you are here and you're thinking, oh God, I wish I did say thank you more, and it all makes sense to me and I want to do it, but I just feel so uncomfortable when I think about thanking my spouse for doing the dishes. Like it just doesn't seem like it's natural. I think they're not going to receive it well. I don't know. I don't want to like honor that for some reason because it's what I think they should do anyway. Whatever all those other thoughts are, if for a moment you could just kind of like let them fade and go, okay, I'm just going to do what I learned about today. I'm going to push my boundary. I'm going to try something that feels hard and maybe will make me feel vulnerable. And I'm just going to say it. Maybe you have to write it down first, thank you, spouse, for cleaning up the dishes after our meal tonight. I know you wanted to watch TV or read your book or whatever else. And it was so nice for me to come down into the kitchen or back into the kitchen or wherever we eat and not have that on my list anymore. Like, it's just really powerful. The nice part is that, in 99.9% of the cases, it's going to be very well received and everyone in that exchange is going to feel good. And that will slowly chip away at all the kind of guards against it that might be making it more difficult. So I wouldn't fake it, but I would pursue something that pushes your boundaries and try something and see if it helps.
It's good advice. Okay, Sally says, when I identify something I'm grateful for, my mind often goes to those who don't have the same experience. For example, a beautiful walk in the woods, that there is a war going on and poverty and trees being cut down. Is there a strategy to counter that negativity?
Yeah, and I share that sentiment, Sally. I feel you. That's a hard one. The important thing about our mental life and our happiness is that we do need to keep a balance. And any work that we do to fuel our own happiness actually makes us more courageous and likely to act on behalf of causes that we would like to advocate for or contribute to to benefiting. So you have to think about it a little bit like when you hear the airplane person say, put on your mask first before you put it on the child. Your walk in the woods is a way of putting on your mask so that you have that stability and that balance. And then when you're thinking about, oh, but there's all this hardship in the world, well, that's real and that's important. And we need to keep those difficulties in our awareness, not in a way that overwhelms our conscious mental life, but in a way that keeps us accountable. And being more well in our own right, we're just more likely to take that next step, right? When we have an opportunity to do something to communicate our feelings about the war, or to support a person who is unhoused in our local neighborhood, we're just more likely to do it because we're empowered, we're strong, and we have the courage. Getting overwhelmed by pain and suffering in the world and considering it like ourselves unworthy of happiness because others don't have the same privilege that we have is just not going to lead to the greatest potential for change. So it's a tricky dynamic, and always kind of being thoughtful about, like, is this moment one where I'm doing the most that I can to kind of bolster my own well-being so that I can go out into the world and be impactful and effective? Or am I sort of drowning in sorrow in a way that just makes me not able to be helpful? There's a self-awareness that goes into that, and in many regards, the place that gratitude fits in is creating that sense of safety and goodness and connection with others that again makes us just feel more capable, more agentic in our efforts out in the world.
Dr. Simon-Thomas, if I may, I wanted to add to that because that really strikes a chord within me. I happen to be a very empathetic person, and oftentimes when I'm, on my way to a restaurant or doing something which I feel, that I am more privileged than the person that I am passing on the street. A person stopped me once, and they happen to be Tibetan. And they said that when I feel sorry for someone else, it's as if to say that somehow I feel that I am better than that person, and that I'm judging that person by my own standard when I don't know what their whole spiritual complexity is. And they actually may be even in a better place than I am. So I shouldn't feel sorry for other people. And that sort of struck a chord with me. And I just wish them well. Whenever I feel that way, I say an intention for the person that I'm passing on the street and wish them well. And then I go on with my life, and it's helped me a lot.
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful story. And I think the value of what it sounds like, the way that researchers and maybe your Tibetan friend might describe that exercise is one of loving kindness, right? That rather than pity, can you extend to that person your true concern as a human and your wish for them to be well, right? I do care. I'm not okay with unhoused people in our community. I don't have the expertise or the resources to solve that problem, but I'm going to help if and when I can, right? And I deeply care about it, and I see you, not you, Jackie, and not you, Camille, or anybody else in this call, but I'm imagining the unhoused person. I see you as a human, and I respect that, and I dignify that. And when and if I can help in a meaningful way, I absolutely will. And I don't think that is like perpendicular to any practice of gratitude.
This is a question on intergenerational connection, which is something I know we're really interested in here. Have you seen good examples of how intergenerational gratitude building can offer lessons for older generations and younger generations to bridge their age gap and find connection?
I don't know of specific research on that topic, but I definitely my hypothesis would be that exchanges of gratitude between any two people increase the sense of common humanity, increase the kind of interdependence of the social bond, and the feelings of familiarity and likingness. And that seems like something that would be of service to well-being, both on the part of the older adults and the younger adults. I do know that there are several projects that try to understand longevity and particular pockets in the world where longevity is pronounced, and people tend on average to live much longer in certain parts of the world. And researchers are like, well, is it because they eat, purple potatoes, or is it because they, live in places where there's lots of hills and they're walking up and down a lot? Both of those sort of dietary and exercise theories have been proposed, but a third major theory is intergenerational contact, ways that certain communities and certain societies actually build in the infrastructure for people in their later life to come into contact with regularly and interact with people from younger generations. And I'm not sure that we do the best job of that in the US. Our kind of approach to aging and where people live and how they live sometimes makes that more difficult. This is a much bigger question than gratitude, but I do think there's an opportunity space for younger people to really dwell in and reflect upon the gratitude that they can and should feel towards older adults who have done so much to make their life possible. And I think that there are ways for people later in their life to benefit from recognizing all the new developments and technologies and medical innovation that has actually made their lives more comfortable. So I think there's no loss, and but I don't know that anybody has specifically set up a study where they've evaluated the specific benefits of that kind of gratitude exchange.
Well, let's see. We're going to just have a couple more questions here, though I know we've received a lot in the chat. And just to answer people's questions, the slides will be made available. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll send those out so everyone can access them. Can you expand on the relationship between spirituality and gratitude?
Yeah. So Bob Emmons often talks about gratitude in a spiritual context. So gratitude for, some transcendent entity that makes goodness available for you. So I'm being very vague because I don't want to create any sense of preference or bias towards anybody's particular religion or spiritual orientation, but being grateful to Mother Nature for the abundance of flowers that bloom in the spring and offer the fragrances that for some reason are pleasurable, right? And the universe of edible plants that keep us healthy as humans. That's a very powerful form of gratitude, and it creates this humility about ourselves that is associated with kind of a sense of common humanity. So there are ways that gratitude in the more kind of spiritual and religious context. I mean, most religions actually espouse gratitude. Most religions and spiritual teachers will actually guide people who are joining their presentations through exercises or reflections that are about gratitude and encourage gratitude. So it's kind of a human universal when it comes to a moral virtue that is aspirational. And again, like you could think of gratitude for you know, the pen that allows me to write language on paper so that I can learn and share my knowledge with other people. Again, very like object focused, or gratitude for, you know, my 16-year-old daughter who, you know, sent me a sweet text message in the middle of the day and reminded me of our family and the fun that we've had recently outside of work. And or yeah, Mother Nature or God or whatever spiritual force is most meaningful to you. All of them, again, arouse that feeling of goodness, of connection to something, and humility, right? It's not about me having to do it myself and, you know, get everything that I need because of my work. It's not all about transactional. That's not to say that there isn't a place for transactional dynamics. There most certainly is. So I'll just end this response with, like, gratitude is not like the panacea. Please don't go and believe that, oh, if you're in the very unfortunate circumstance of getting some poor health news, think like, okay, so I'm just going to practice gratitude to try to cure myself of this disease. That is not appropriate, right? Can you leverage gratitude in combination with the appropriate treatment for whatever difficult experience that you're having? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Gratitude is part of the recipe of things that we can bring into our lives to experience greater well-being.
And we have a comment here followed by a question that I think is kind of in line with that. Joan said, I have found a big positive reaction when I thank the trash collectors in my area and saying how I appreciate their efforts to keep our environment clean. People like these workers are vital to our lives, but often are ignored and dismissed. And then there was a question right after that said, so if you thank the person at the register by saying thank you, is that going to seem fake to them? So I know we have these kind of fleeting relationships with different kinds of people throughout our day. And, you know, it may seem hard sometimes to express gratitude. We fear it might land in an insincere way. Is there a way to kind of push past that?
You know, yes. And I think it's important not to express gratitude in the wrong time, right? I mean, some people have asked a similar question like, well, isn't it bad if people are grateful towards their captors? Well, yeah. Yeah, you shouldn't express gratitude towards somebody who is harming you, right? And not to be so extreme, there may be contexts where expressing gratitude would actually be kind of weird and uncalled for. And so we have to be wise about that dynamic and really ask ourselves, is this person doing something that's introducing a goodness into my life that is truly kind of describable in a way that wouldn't just seem overbearing or intrusive to the other person? So gratitude to strangers can be tricky, but I do love the example of taking a moment, if you're not like, you know, burdening the trash collector by making them unable to, you know, move to their next house and they seem like they're in a rush. But if they're there for a minute and you can catch their eye and say, hey, I want you to know that it means a lot to me that you do the work that you do, right? You could have had any number of different occupations and jobs, and you keep our environment clean, and man, my life is so improved as a result of the work that you're doing. I think, you know, that little, like, you know, 15-second exchange can be super powerful, and more often than not, the person on the other end is going to like lighten up. You know, their eyebrows are going to go up and they're going to go, oh, me? Well, thanks, right? So, you know, I do think that there's some discernment there, and there are times when it's not appropriate to use gratitude. You know, there's another emotion or another overture in the person checking out your groceries. I mean, if you look at them and they are just not interested, right? You can kind of tell. We know when somebody's like looking up or wanting to have little tiny conversation, and when they're not. And maybe the better thing is to just, the same kind of loving kindness kind of overture that we talked about earlier towards a person who's unhoused, right? When people are really suffering, it's not always the right time to offer gratitude. And if somebody's not interested, it's not always the right time. But if you have that avenue and there is something good that you can easily name, I say go for it.
Okay, and I think I'll end on this last question. It's from Kevin, and first of all, he says, grateful for your talk. And I think his question is important. Yesterday was an election day, and we have a year to go through what will probably be kind of a contentious election. And then we're also approaching the holidays, where we often tend to have sometimes difficult conversations with family and stuff like that. So Kevin says, thinking about how gratitude can reduce incivility and aggressiveness, can you talk about how this could be applied to reduce this in our political discourse?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes gratitude is a way to identify a common value, right? If you're, for example, across from somebody who disagrees vehemently about a particular policy, but the fact that, there's freedom to talk about different perspectives on a particular policy is something that you can agree on, right? We have a certain freedom that we can share our ideas, and we have access to so much rich information and history that can help us guide a conversation. So gratitude can kind of be a way of setting the stage around a common appreciation, a common value system, prior to getting into the, intricacies of, why one person might feel more right and another, like the other, is wrong. Which, we have a Bridging Differences director at the Greater Good Science Center who I wish was here, because she would answer this question more graciously than I can, in terms of like how to actively enter into situations where you anticipate that there will be ideological conflict or strife, interpersonal strife. I think that there's an opportunity also at an individual level to come into that dynamic in a more open and optimistic way. Oftentimes we know that other person's going to be there. We already think we don't like them, and we walk in ready. We walk in ready to battle, right? But if we can walk in with like, okay, I have so much to be grateful for, and I'm so fortunate in so many ways. This is going to be challenging for me, but I can bring that strength and that courage to this interaction, and that sense of common humanity, shared humanity, through gratitude, so that maybe it'll go a little bit more fruitfully. And again, it's not the panacea, but I think there are ways that as an individual, you can kind of prepare yourself for a contentious interaction. And even in a situation where you're with others who you're going to disagree with, you can start with gratitude about something that you do share an appreciation of, to just set the tone and remind us of our common humanity.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll know that you've received a lot of gratitude in the Q&A for your talk today. And I want to thank you very much. And Jackie, do you have closing remarks for us?
Yeah, I'm just blown away. This has been so instrumental. Obviously, here at Belmont Village, we have such a dynamic environment in that our residents are highly educated, highly academic. And obviously we have executives, we have people who work in culinary, in clinical, in programs, in activities, in housekeeping and maintenance. And it's such a diverse community and intergenerational. And it's not always easy for us to appreciate what other people bring to the table when they're so different from what our own values are. And so this webinar has been so helpful. You've done so much for us as we're entering the season of gratitude, which should be always. But
Mhm.
thank you so much. We really just can't thank you enough. We're so appreciative. Thank you both, Camille, for all of your work in putting this together. And yeah, enjoy the holidays, and we hope to see you soon.
Well, I will close with a last practice, which is to try to be gracious about receiving gratitude. And instead of saying like, oh, it was nothing, no problem, say something like, you're welcome. And it's a privilege. I'm honored to have gotten to contribute to your goals. So thank you for that opportunity.
Wonderful. All right. Take care, everybody. Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays. Bye.